This is the SuperBox S7 Prime, and this is the Elite Mini. So what is the difference between the SuperBox and the VCBox? I get a lot of comments. Which one do I like better? Well, we're going to talk about that today, and I'm also going to talk about the legalities of both of these boxes because they do fall in a very gray area. So this box is a one and done situation. You buy the box and that is it. You don't have to pay for subscriptions, you don't have to pay for your cable bill, nothing like that. As long as you have a Wi-Fi connection, you're good to go. But it all depends on what part of the world you live in. In other words, it's not illegal to buy either of these boxes, but it may be illegal to use them depending on where you live. So if you're curious about that and you'd like to learn more about both of these boxes, keep watching because you're watching Blue Collar Guy. Okay, we're back. So before I even get started, I have to give you a disclaimer, and a lot of it has to do with the legalities that surround both of these boxes. So this video is for entertainment and for educational purposes only. You need to consult with your local laws before buying one of these devices and using the apps that come on them. So buying the boxes themselves is not against the law. You can quite often find these boxes in Walmart or Best Buy. You can find them online. It's not hard to buy them. I will even include some links if you want to purchase one. However, it may be illegal to use the proprietary apps that are on these boxes. Now, the other thing I need to let you know is that those proprietary apps are a lot different than the ones that you'll put on your ONN box. They're not the same thing. As a matter of fact, the apps on the SuperBox don't look anything like the ones on the VCBox. So I have talked about that issue before, and I will touch base on it briefly for those that are new to the channel. So if you are new to Blue Collar Guy, I will let you know one thing for sure. You will not have to pay a dime, not a single dime, to watch my channel. In other words, there will be no membership fees or hidden videos or Patreon videos. I don't ask you to buy me a coffee. As a matter of fact, here's all the things I will never ask you for. And the reason why I want to let you know that is because a lot of people make videos on things like this, and then if you want to learn more, they charge you money just to learn more about that, and I don't believe in that. I am an old school YouTube content creator. If you're willing to watch this video to the end, and by the way, that would help me, and that doesn't cost you anything to do that. If you are tired of watching YouTube videos only to find out that you have to join a membership to learn more about a particular product or a particular technique, or have a question answered on a product, well then hype this video and watch it to the end, because that will let the YouTube algorithm know that this is exactly the type of format that you want to see from now on. So now that we have all of that information out of the way, what do you say we take this thing out of the box and see what you get in the box? So this is the SuperBox S7 Prime. Now this is using Android 12. Okay, so it will have an Ethernet jack, Wi-Fi 6, 4 gigabytes of RAM, 128 gigabytes of ROM, and I'm pretty sure it is DD3. I could be wrong on that, but if I am wrong, I will do a correction in the window. It supports 6K, it has over-the-air updates, and that is quite important. And the reason why that is important is because that is something you will not get with your ONN if you were to sideload it. That is the main difference between these boxes and one of those boxes, and it is the proprietary apps. And it also has the newest form of compression, which is H.265. Now on this side, guys here, because these are the serial numbers, and this is the manufactured and R&D'd in the USA. So they do gear their boxes towards US type of viewers, but the problem with that is that in the US, that's where you can run into the most problems. So I do need to make you aware of that. My job as a reviewer is to review products. So as far as the ethics of this box is concerned, that will be a personal decision that you will have to make. I am not here to dictate to you what your ethical standards are or what you believe is right or what is wrong. So on this side of the box, it just says SuperBox again. And of course, it is very well packaged. Now, these boxes sell for roughly between $350 and $450. I will put the price in the corner to give you an idea of what was sent to me by the manufacturer. Okay, so you've got that. Now let's take this out of the box here. Okay, so as you can see, it is bright orange, which will give it a unique designation. So SuperBox usually uses blue, and they have also used black plastic cases, but this particular one is an aluminum case. So this case is very bright. It's an orangey yellow color, kind of got some gold in there. It is very, very shiny, very fancy looking. And it is something that will definitely stand out on your TV stand. So on this side of it, you're going to have a TF card. You're going to have a USB-C connector. So normally you'll get two of these, but now we have a USB-C. So if you have a USB-C drive, you can use that as well. That is something that is a little different about this box. Now on the back you also have USB-C power, and I really like that. And the reason why I like that is because it's a lot easier to find if your old power supply burns out. Those barrel style connectors, you can get other power supplies that can supply power to them. However, you do have to do a little more research if the sleeve is going to be negative or the tip's going to be positive, that sort of thing. This is a lot easier. You'll just get a USB-C cable, a power brick from any store, and you'll be able to go from there. It also has an IR blaster control. Now, it doesn't come with one of those, but you're going to find that you won't need it anyway because it's going to have a Bluetooth remote control. You have an old school AV input. I'm going to show you what that looks like. So if you have a really old TV and it's got these type of connectors, you just plug one of those in, goes into there. It's going to have an HDMI cable that comes with it. This is an Ethernet cable, so if you don't want to use your Wi-Fi connection, you can plug it in through that way. And this is for an audio soundbar, so if you want to plug it in through there, you can. Now on the bottom, you got some venting, and you've got your MAC address, and I'm just going to cover that up with my thumb because for obvious reasons. On this side here, you've got some more venting, which is good. And of course, as I said before, we have two antennas and we have an aluminum housing, and that's going to give you some RF interference protection. It's also going to add to the cooling abilities. It's going to help keep this box cooler. Now, we are doing a comparison between this one and the VCBox Elite Mini. So when you look at the Elite Mini, this is a plastic box, so it's not going to have the same cooling abilities. It is a smaller box also, which is good for compactness, but it's also not good for heat distribution because it's going to seal the heat in there a little more. I did notice that this box does get warmer than the other boxes, but I did not notice any performance degradation as a result. So it didn't affect the performance, if that's what you're wondering. So on the Elite Mini, we have one antenna, not two. We have a similar jack there. We have an AV jack. We have an optical output for your soundbar. We have an HDMI output. And we are still using the barrel connector instead of the USB-C connector. On this side, we do have a micro SD card slot, but we have two USB ports, and they're both 2.0. This one will have a USB-C here, and that is kind of a big deal because a lot of people are going to this format. On the front, they both have a display, and they will just basically show you the time and how they're connected. So now let's take a look at the rest of the box. So we have a HDMI cable in here, we have the USB-C power supply, and it is dedicated, but you can use power bricks along with the USB-C cable. They've just done it this way. And then we have the remote control. And I'll tell you right now, this remote control looks just like a lot of the other SuperBox remote controls, and it will use AAA batteries. Yeah. Which are not included. In comparison, this is the VCBox remote control, and I'm going to just zoom out a bit. Actually, I'm going to switch, so I'm just going to switch camera angles. There's the VCBox remote control. there's the SuperBox remote control. That's what they look like. There's something I need to read to you before we go any further, just so that you are aware of my situation when it comes to these boxes. So one thing that I wanted to address before we get into the comparison is that there are limitations on what I can show you on YouTube. Some viewers may wonder why I'm not giving a full screen demonstration of every application, every menu, every title, every piece of content available on these devices. The simple answer is that platforms like YouTube have rules and policies creators must follow, and there are certain things that cannot be shown in detail without risking copyright issues, community guidelines, or even removal of the video. And I've had videos removed because of this in the past. I have learned firsthand that there are things you can do on YouTube and things that you cannot do on YouTube. Now, this isn't unique to my channel. Many creators have run into similar challenges when covering products and services or platforms that operate in gray areas. So the one thing I can tell you is what features these boxes have, how they perform, and which one I would choose. So my goal is to provide you with useful information without violating YouTube's policies and guidelines. So I'm going to give you an example. Let's say I'm evaluating a vehicle, but I'm not going to give you a list of all the destinations that it has gone to, if that kind of sums that up. So having said all of that, if you still have a craving for all of the destinations that the vehicle has gone to, I do have another platform on Rumble, and if you'd like a link to that, just let me know. And just to let you know, any links that I give you will be free. So if you go there, you don't have to pay any membership fees or anything like that. All of the information that I will give you will be 100% free, no strings attached. And the other thing that I would like to remind you of is that I am not an affiliate of either of these companies. So if you buy any of these products, I don't get a commission and I don't want a commission. The differences between SuperBox and VCBox is the names of their proprietary apps. So VCBox uses apps and they're referred to as Heat, H-E-A-T. And I'll give you a screenshot of what those apps look like here. And I'm also going to give you a screenshot of the SuperBox apps because they're called Blue TV, Blue VOD, I believe another one's called Playback TV. Now, both boxes also have what I refer to as mid-tier apps. Now, these apps don't belong to them, but they have agreements with other companies. And if you click on them, sometimes they work and sometimes they don't work. When they do work, they work rather well, but sometimes you'll have either a login error or it'll just say it didn't register the server. So VCBox, it usually will just say it can't log in successfully. So, but I will tell you that their proprietary apps, so on SuperBox, the Blue apps, and on VCBox, their Heat apps, if there's any issues with those apps, they do have customer support, and that customer support is related to those apps and those apps only. So they are not responsible for the other mid-tier apps. They just have them there just so that you can access additional content should they work. So how do these boxes differ in the way that they function? So the user interface is very similar on both. I find that they're both equally as responsive. I find that they behave differently when you want to play a movie. For instance, on the VCBox, you will have a selection of servers that you can pick from. If one server doesn't play a movie, you can log into another server, and that's all done through the menu system. On the SuperBox, it automatically switches to the other servers, but sometimes you have to exit out of the movie and try to play it again. So it will involve you clicking out and clicking back into it, and then it recognizes there's a problem, and then it tries to reload the movie. Now, for the most part, these boxes work rather efficiently and rather smoothly. So when I put the SuperBox on Blue TV, for instance, it plays, CNN or any of those other channels, just like a cable box or anything else would. The menu system is set up very similar to that of a cable box. It even has time shift on some of the channels, so if you want to go back in time, you can. If you want to go forward in time, you can. You can pause live TV if you want, if you have to go to the washroom or something and come back. So it does have that option. Now, VCBox has similar functionality on their boxes, but the layout is a little bit different. And again, if you want to see how that layout looks, you can go to my Rumble channel and I can show you what that's going to look like, because I'll be demonstrating it there. Now, as far as hardware is concerned, like I'm talking about the processor, the RAM, and the ROM, they're very similar in the way that they behave. When it comes to the video on demand, like the movies, I find that the VCBox will often have newer movies sooner than the SuperBox. So when I went on the SuperBox S7 Prime and I was looking for the latest movies, I did not see as many of them as I did when I went to the VCBox. Now, I will tell you this, that when you get those movies, so if you're watching a movie that's still playing in the theater and you're watching it on a VCBox, it will be called CAM, C-A-M. And that movie will not have the polished look that it would as if it was a true video on demand movie. In other words, you're going to have something like Cinema City floating around it. It's going to have some watermarks to it, is what I'm getting at. However, you are watching a movie that's still playing in the theater. Keep that in mind. So which one of these boxes would I pick? Well, if I had to only pick one of the boxes, I would probably pick the Elite Mini. I found that it had a lot more content, it was fairly snappy, and it had more recent movies on the VOD. So I thought that was a big plus. I found that they played rather well. In other words, when you hit play, there was no issues. Now on the SuperBox, I found that some of the movies, like older style movies, it had a bigger selection on some than the VCBox did. In other words, if you can't find a movie on the VCBox, you might be able to find it on the SuperBox. An example of that was one time I was looking for one of the Mission Impossible movies. I could not find it on the VCBox, but I did find it on the SuperBox. Now, sometimes the reverse is also true. In other words, if you really want to be the king of the content, then have one of each of these boxes. And I know that that is an expensive option, but when you think about it, it's all about redundancy. And it's the old saying, putting all of your eggs in one basket is never a good idea. The average household has more than one TV, and you have to keep in mind that you're going to need a box for every single TV. So is it wise to buy the same box for each TV? I think not. So I would have a SuperBox on one TV, and I would have a VCBox on another TV. So before I close this video, I also want to let you know that when you boot these boxes up, they all tell you that you're using those apps at your own risk. So if you're in a country in which those copyright violations could get you into a lot of trouble, I need you to be aware of that. And they don't hide that fact. They tell you that if you use those apps, it's at your own risk. Now, some people don't like that. They say that if you can't use it, then you shouldn't be able to sell it. In other words, there shouldn't be a disclaimer. They shouldn't have the apps on there at all if they're not legal. That somehow this is kind of a loophole. I want to let those people know that there's different rules from different places in the world. Not everybody has the same rules. Copyright rules that apply in one country don't necessarily apply in another country. Sometimes they're not even enforced. You can use these streaming boxes as regular streaming boxes. Kind of brings me back to my first point, because when you think about it, it's not against the law to buy a computer, but depending on how you use it, it could get you into a lot of trouble. And a lot of people have landed themselves in prison for many, many years using a computer improperly. So take care, be safe at work, and I will see you at the next video. And if you're interested in learning a little bit more details on these, just give me a shout and I will send you a link to the platform. And of course, everything is free and no charge. Bye.